Dr. Nick and Hector set out on a hunt for the sheriff who kidnapped Sarah, while Casey meets a disturbingly odd patient. We're going to talk about it in the penultimate issue, A Legacy of Violence number 11 from Mad Cave Studios. See you in 3. Welcome back to Comical Opinions. This is our review of A Legacy of Violence number 11 from Mad Cave Studios. Before we get started, please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit that bell for notification, and make sure you stay tuned through the end for the final score. Let's talk about the credits. Legacy of Violence number 11 is written by Cullen Bunn, art, colors, and cover art by Andrea Muti, and letters by Russ Wooten. Let's recap what happened in the last issue before we talk about what happened in this issue. So in the previous issue, Dr. Nick and Hector are in jail, who were put there because they were put there by the sheriff, who we now know is in league with the psycho killer whose name is unnamed, but the guy wearing the mask who's doing all the horrible mutilations, and we still don't know what he's doing and why. I know it sounds weird, but let's go with him. He's eventually let out by one of the other doctors who's come looking for them. And they escape. They go back to town. They find out that Sarah has been kidnapped by the sheriff, who they now deduce is in league with the psycho killer. And so they head out looking for the sheriff. They also gather some of the villagers who also realize that Sarah has been kidnapped, and they all form a big posse to do something about it, and coming up in separate vehicles. They see that the sheriff went back to the hospital, but he escapes because he drove right past them just as they're arriving, and so they give chase, and that's where we leave off. Meanwhile, while all this is happening, the other doctors who've been entranced or mesmerized by the psycho killer are still down in his lair doing who knows what. It's strange. Anyway, we pick up in this issue for A Legacy of Violence number 11. Previous issue was number 10, of course. There, we start off with a car chase. And so Nick and Hector are in one vehicle. The posse of the villagers are in the second vehicle, and they're all chasing down the sheriff. They figure if they can catch him, they can force him to tell them where he took Sarah and where this psycho killer is holed up. Is he in some kind of secret room in the hospital? Is he in an abandoned building somewhere? They don't know, but they figure they can catch the sheriff. They can figure it out. So they're chasing him down these windy, backwoods, third world country type of roads. The sheriff turns around and starts shooting at them. He forces one car off the road, flips it over, turns it over, and the one vehicle, which is a pickup truck, it kills everyone. And then even one of the people that is riding in the bed in the back leans over, and he winds up getting decapitated by a branch. It's like that scene from Hereditary, if you've ever seen that scene with the daughter who gets killed. Sorry to spoil it for you, but if you've never seen Hereditary, go do it. It's disturbing in a great way. Go watch that film. Anyway, so it's like everybody gets killed in the vehicle with the posse from the villagers. Half of them get beheaded. Some of them get bashed into trees. The truck flips over. It's a big mess. Likewise, Hector and Nick get a little bit farther, but their vehicle is also disabled by the gunfire. They fall off into a ditch. They manage to survive, and they go look for the rest of the villagers, and they find them all dead, and most of them in horrific ways. The sheriff stops and he gets out and he starts shooting at them with his rifle. They take off. Hector gets shot through the shoulder, but it's a clean bullet right through, so he's injured but not bad enough to kill him. And now they're playing cat and mouse in the middle of this third world jungle, trying to sneak up on the sheriff as he's shooting at them. So they're running through the trees, trying to misdirect, bobbing and weaving, trying to get around him and do what have you. And eventually they do figure out how to get to him, but Hector may or may not be mortally wounded as Nick gets a jump on the sheriff, knocks him down. They struggle over the gun, and blammo, the gun goes off, and it may or may not have killed the sheriff. Sort of a vague end to that particular moment in time, and we'll find out what happens in the next issue, which is the finale. Meanwhile, Casey's back at the hospital. She's doing her rounds, like she's confused about what's going on, not quite sure what's happening, but she's just doing her rounds. I guess she's not in on this chaos and madness that's happening. And she encounters a new patient, a gentleman by the name of Kleinman, an older gentleman. Kleinman presumes that he's of some sort of Germanic or European origin, and he starts making some strange statements along the lines of, I'm a doctor too, but I'm a traveling doctor, which means I can take my practice with me anywhere, and I need more doctors. And I think I like what you're doing. I like the cut of your jib. Why don't you come along with me? And so they're having this weird conversation where he seems very aggressively interested in getting Casey to join him, whatever that means. And but Casey's sort of playing along like she's placating him, but not really taking him too seriously. After the whole gunfight scenario in the jungle, we cut back to the hospital room, and it turns out the elderly patient named Kleinman is now gone, and we find Casey and there's a bunch of blood around, and then there's an inset panel where we see Casey is knocked out on the floor, but it's not quite clear where on the floor she is. If we had to play our cards and start prognosticating into the future what's going on, the old man Kleinman, who is the strange doctor with a somewhat nefarious looking grin on his face, is probably the psycho killer of Nazi origins. I guess, maybe. Who knows? But that's where we leave it. So, to recap, Nick and Hector get the jump on the sheriff. Hector might be dead. The sheriff might be dead. Nick is not dead, but the disposition unknown. Casey has encountered an old man who's creepy weird in a not so kind way. And when the orderly comes to check on them, the old man and Casey are both gone. Apparently, Casey's been knocked out, and we don't know what's going on. But there's a strong hint that the old man is the psycho killer at the heart of this entire story. And that's it. What do we think about A Legacy of Violence number 11? Lots of energy, lots of pacing. Things are happening, but this is the penultimate issue, which means the finale is next. And so we have to take that into a context about whether or not we think we're heading in the right direction. Have all the stars aligned? Have all the plot points start to come together? Maybe. Some of the things are being revealed, but honestly, it's really more about the action and setting things up and getting players in a particular place, possibly Casey, maybe even getting a look at the killer's real face. Who knows? We'll sign. But at the very least, the pacing's up, things are happening, there's energy, there's forward, at least I won't say there's forward momentum, there's momentum towards some direction, although we'll talk about that in the next part. So here's the next part. What do we not like about A Legacy of Violence number 11? I still have no idea what's going on. After over a year and 11 issues, heading into the finale, I have no idea what's going on. Who is the psycho killer? What does he have to do with Nick? What is I'm pausing because I'm trying to articulate how do you go through 11 issues of a story of a maxi series, and by the time you get to the end of the 11th issue, which is the penultimate issue, you still have no clear idea what's going on. What does the killer want? Why does he want? What is his connection to Nick? There seems to be an implied connection between the killer and Nick through his grandfather, who we learned from the last issue proclaimed himself as a Nazi, and he was part of this infamous Unit 731, which during the time of World War II was responsible for grotesque, barbaric medical experiments on human beings. And then Nick was somehow traumatized by that revelation after he saw that film that he found in his grandfather's house. But what does that have to do with now? What does that have to do with the killer? What does the killer have anything to do with Nick? How did they all come together in this South American town in the middle of nowhere? Why on earth is everybody sort of entranced in this group, a crowd of doctors? How are they not able to confront this killer when they face with him and overcome him? What is is this all happening in Nick's mind? I mean, if that's where this goes, that would be weird, and I would maybe not in a good way, unless Cullen Bunn can pull it off. But as it stands right now, we're at issue number 11. We still have no idea what's going on as far as who's who and what's what. I mean, we know that this town is under the power of a mutilating killer that has some sort of underground connection to Nazi experiments during World War II. But why? To what end? What? I don't know. Don't know anything that's going on here. We'll figure out what happens in issue 12, which comes out next month. But for right now, that's the big downside of this. Is Cullen Bunn took so long to get to this point, and now we're at the point where the finale should just bring it all together, and that does not seem possible. I mean, I'll be optimistic, give him a fair shake, but that does not seem possible. But we'll see. We'll see. Okay, so let's talk about the art from Andrea Muti. It is gross and weird and grotesque. Muti had to do a lot of uh, bones breaking, decapitations, gunshots. Even there's an extensive amount of vomiting in the early part of this issue. Lots of gross, weird stuff that happens, and that kind of suits Muti style pretty well. I mean, the line work is not super clean and crisp or detailed, but Muti knows how to do eyes and project emotional reactions from the characters, which is great. That is if you can't master anything else about comic artistry, if you can master how the projecting how the characters feel, I mean, you're 90% of the way there, which is great. And then you have all this weird, gross, uh, bloody type of gore that's happening, and Muti kind of projects it in a way that suggests but doesn't really show it to you in gratuitous, um, vibrant detail. It's sort of suggested. I mean, for example, people are puking, but all you see is like white, and people are getting shot, but a lot of it is in silhouette, and people getting decapitated is all in silhouette. So Muti uses a lot of tricks to kind of give you what you're looking for without being gaudy about it, I guess is the word that I'm looking for. And so from an artistic standpoint, I like this issue, and there's a lot of merit to it. But it may not be everybody's cup of tea because it is so stylized, and that's just being fair about it. Final thoughts. What do we think about A Legacy of Violence number 11 from Mad Cave Studios? Lots of action, great pacing, there's plenty of energy, and you feel like things are happening, which is good. On the flip side, you still have no idea after 11 issues what's going on, how all these different pieces connect with each other, and where it's headed. Now, perhaps Cullen Bunn can bring it all home in issue 12. That's a very tall order. Given everything that's happened, it's a very tall order. But if you can pull it off, great. But at this point, the tea leaves don't look so great on that count. Therefore, final score, we're going to give A Legacy of Violence number 11 from Mad Cave Studios a 7.3 out of 10. Hope you enjoyed this review. And if you like these types of stories, if you like weird, kind of gratuitous, violent horror, let us know in the comment section. We want to hear your opinions about this. And are you reading this series, and what do you think? Does your opinion match our own, or are we off base on that one? I want to hear what you have to say about that. And speaking of which, if you like reviews of all kinds of comics, stay tuned through the outro for the next one.